Who would have thought that the somewhat forgotten Marvel comic book, What If, would get a heavily promoted animated series? The upcoming Marvel Zombies spin-off miniseries demonstrates hardcore fans' continued interest in superhero entertainment, highlighting the value of targeting niche audiences. The focus on dedicated fans has deep roots in Marvel's history. Niche enthusiasts have often helped Marvel generate profits by supporting books that lacked mainstream appeal. Unlike Spider-Man's profile-raising 1960s animated series, What If lacked promotional support. Still, the offbeat title has a mostly successful 8-year run. What If presented a unique gimmick, one-shot storyline set in an alternate universe, with no bearing on current continuity. What If allowed Marvel to take popular characters and boost sales on a book that offers wild scenarios appealing to a particular fan's heroes. If you're buying the monthly Captain America series, you might want to check out a What If issue featuring the Shield Slinger. If you skipped it, there will be no impact. Your regular reading won't be affected. The What If stories don't impact the main storylines. The alternative timeline concept made What If stand out from other B-level titles, as it allowed the book to feature A-list heroes and teams. That was less risky than trying to sell readers on a new book featuring a C-level character. Plus, the alternate timeline concept proved novel and innovative at the time. The comic book landscape has evolved significantly since the previous decades. Modern comic book publishing often produces a vast number of books that have no connection to the canon or the current timeline. You don't even need an entirely alternate timeline. Take 2020's Exiles miniseries, in which X-Men characters bounce around in the multiverse in ways that may or may not affect the main continuity. During its original run, What If evolved into a highly influential book, helping to establish the concept of an alternative timeline in Marvel continuity. Readers may notice slight parallels between the original What If and the future Ultimates lineup when Marvel Comics decided to reboot Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and others. Ultimate Comics allowed Marvel to remake the books in a manner better suited for modern audiences and do so in an alternative universe. Continuity problems weren't all that serious in 1977, primarily for Marvel. The House of Ideas had only been in existence for 16 years, and 1961 to 1964 introduced relatively few characters. Continuity was not a significant concern, but sales were. Marvel needed to generate revenue, as the late 1970s were not banner years for the industry, and publishing more books reflected a partial solution. What If delivered above-average monthly sales, making it a valuable supporting title. The late Jim Shooter noted that once a book dropped down to 100,000 monthly sales in those days, cancellation proved unavoidable. However, consumer interest faced limitations. The Amazing Spider-Man, Marvel's top book, averaged about 270,000 monthly buyers, excluding the eventual outlier Star Wars, which drew fans of the movie to expand distribution and generate massive sales. When the Incredible Hulk CBS television show took off, so did Hulk's popularity. But it didn't top the Amazing Spider-Man circulation. Ultimately, Marvel had to settle for 125,000 to 150,000 copies sold monthly as acceptable for a B-lister. What If had that potential since it featured characters from books that sold well, with monthly sales of 150 to 160,000 copies, only falling when the concept ran its course. So what about What If? Do the early issues hold up? What were some of the standouts? Let's take a look. Please don't think. What If Spider-Man had joined the Fantastic Four is little more than a glorified and speculative variant on the typical Marvel team-up tale. The issue presents more than a throwaway tale about the web-slinger tagging with the world's greatest superhero team. Instead, the first issue features a highly speculative examination of how different the Marvel Universe would be if Spider-Man were never a solo hero. Newsstand and spinner rack shoppers received a shock, discovering the book focused on the then nebulous concept of alternate realities in comic books. What If number 1 adds up to 5? The inaugural issue of What If, February 1977, revealed that the Watcher can see into alternate timelines, such as when the Axis powers won World War II and Marvel heroes later set things right, and noted, "Doubts exist as to whether Spider-Man's spectacular bout with a certain colorfully clad alien took place in this time continuum or another." Of course, that is a sly reference to Superman versus the Amazing Spider-Man. The Battle of the Century, March 1976. This Marvel-DC crossover didn't fit directly into any established timeline or continuity.